What's up, y'all? You know what time it is. It's about to be that time.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Savage.
Okay, let's focus in primarily on Zunesha. What their purpose is, why they could be here, what are they going to do? We have a bunch of government ships here. The going theory, of course, is that Zunesha is going to do what it had done to Jack's fleet, right? And just wipe all of these ships away. But rather, I would pose the question, does Momonosuke need to command that? Or has Momonosuke removed that, right? Momonosuke chose to stay on Zou for an extended period of time, allowing Luffy to go to Whole Cake Island and then Kinemon's group to go ahead. But Momonosuke stayed with Inuarashi to have a conversation with Zunesha. So, with that being said, did Momonosuke remove the curse? Does Zunesha have agency to where Zunesha can choose to attack these government ships if they please, right? Or potentially the Big Mom ship as well. But that brings up a bigger question of what's the purpose of the government ships then if they're just there to be fodder for Zunesha, right? Now that's a possibility, but it creates this very elaborate red herring that, you know, is almost pointless because we've already seen Zunesha use their power before, so we don't need to see it again. You would have these government ships here so that they do actually annex Wano. Like, we beat Kaido, but we lose Wano to the world government. And then Luffy has to take on the world government to get Wano back for Momonosuke. That's more the storytelling and the way that the story, you know, should go because it's more interesting that way. If Luffy just wins and then, you know, Wano, you know, is happy and all of this stuff like every other island, that doesn't necessarily get us to the end game any faster. These ships here should be there for a purpose, right? One of those main purposes is that there should be high-profile individuals on those ships, such as Vegapunk, Green Bull, Kizaru, the SSG. This opens the possibility for all of those characters, or, you know, one or more, to be on those ships, and then we could see them display their power against Zunesha. Now, that would be interesting because we've already seen Zunisha's power. So if Oda wants to hype up another character that we've maybe heard about but haven't seen, this is the opportunity to do that. Now, I figured, you know, if the SSG were on those ships, they would take on the Big Mom pirates and sort of, you know, sink their ship or something like that. And then we would know that the SSG is a threat worthy of being mentioned by Kaido in 985, saying that the SSG could go up against him and Big Mom and, you know, the other emperors, because that's what the world government is touting, that they have something that can combat these people, that they don't need the Shichibukai for the warlords, for the balance of power anymore. People were bringing up, you know, an old theory of mine from, you know, 2 years back or more, where I said that what if the original user of Tama's fruit gave Zunesha their order, right? It's at the end of the old Tama theory. A lot of people were talking about it. It's still on the table, right? But I don't think that's what's going to happen here. Now, I think potentially in the Ancient Kingdom, you know, there is a possibility that against Zunisha's own will, Zunesha was used to like trample on or destroy the Ancient Kingdom. That's something that we could possibly find out later. And then someone who didn't like that then cursed Zunesha and told him to go take a walk forever. Zunesha is a massive plot device, okay? Zunesha is either here for everybody to make their escape from Onigashima on, or potentially for Momonosuke to move Onigashima and drop it on top of Zou, right? Now, the implication of dropping Onigashima on top of Zou does the same effect of what we can expect later on in the story with Fishman Island, right? I think that one of Luffy's main goals in the story is that he is going to unite the seas, right? He's going to unite all of the cultures, all of the races, right? Madame Charlie had the prediction that Luffy would destroy Fishman Island, right? But is that such a bad thing? It just means that the fishmen have to go and live amongst the people on the surface, right? And intermingle. If Zou gets destroyed, it's the same effect. Now the minks have to disperse and go to different islands and live on their own instead of in their isolated community. And that just makes sense to me, that we wouldn't necessarily have this island be secluded when the story is done. The minks should go off and propagate the world. Now, what would be fun is if once the dust settles, Tama is the one to give Zunesha a dango and say something to the effect of, "You're free now." Especially if the island on top has been destroyed, which I think is the only way to go about Zou in the first place. So in the last video, we spent a lot of time talking about Luffy's awakening and how I believe that his ultimate form would be just turning himself into a giant, right? But then I marinated on it a little bit and I started thinking about Gear Third and how, you know, he was able to grow and shrink. And I was like, what if that is the ultimate power of the fruit, that it can grow and shrink? And then I started thinking about Kid's ability and how he can actually, for his awakening, assign his power to somebody else, right? So then I thought, what if Luffy can make people and things grow and shrink with his awakening? And that the original user of the Gomu Gomu no Mi made Zunesha grow, ballooned Zunesha into the gigantic size that it is. If Luffy is the key to gigantification, then that would tie up a lot of loose ends in the post-time skip with Big Mom, Vegapunk, Caesar, etc., and make that whole plotline actually mean something. Now, it's important to remember that what this fodder Cypherpole agent is looking at is not Zunesha. It's likely Onigashima or potentially another gigantic land king. We have seen many giant shadows. We saw them in the Florian Triangle, right? And Zunesha is tall enough to walk over the red line. Just very easily. It is much taller than the red line. We looked up the height during the stream. So a lot of these giant creatures are not bound to any particular sea. They can move around. So we could see maybe those things from the Florian Triangle show up as well. One interesting thing that came up in the stream was the idea of what if Zunesha is a devil fruit, right? And that Joy Boy ate this fruit, and Joy Boy has been controlled and sent on this walk. Now that would be a very interesting twist, an Oda level twist. I don't know if I'm completely sold yet, but it is interesting, especially when you go back to Zou and you look at that zoom in on Zunesha's eye, right? And it is almost identical to the zoom in on the eye that we get during the Reverie for Imu, right? So if Zunesha was a human at some point, right, and then was transformed into Zunesha, punished, you know, cursed to become Zunesha, then it creates a very interesting dynamic and twist when we get into like the Void history and we get into Imu's backstory, right? That, you know, they were related, brothers, brother and sister, who knows? They had a falling out within the ancient kingdom. Who was going to, you know, going to rule? Which I believe that a lot of the problems within the ancient kingdom were, you know, issues of who's ruling the correct way, different things like that. There's a lot of stuff where you can kind of dive deep into Egyptian mythology, right? Which seems to be pretty relevant, especially with Imu, right? You know, you think of Imhotep. Imhotep was a vizier to the pharaoh of the time, and the architect of the pyramids, and the high priest of the sun god Ra. The sun god, does that sound familiar? What if Imu's story was a worse timeline version of ancient Egypt, where instead of being responsible for, you know, building great things, Imu was actually responsible for vast tragedies in the ancient kingdom that, you know, essentially they wanted to cover up. Similar in a sense to how Orochi orchestrated the downfall of the Kosuke clan and Wano. If Zunesha is a fruit and they were originally human, then could they be the former king of the ancient kingdom, waiting to be redeemed for destroying it, a la King Riku? Wouldn't be the first time that Oda's rehashed some sort of story within the story. So if that was the case, and Zunesha, you know, whoever Zunesha was during the Void of History, was cursed and taken down by Imu, and then Imu came into power and then established the world government, erased the ancient kingdom, and then wanted to create the world in their image, and that's the world that we live in now, and that's what, you know, the poneglyphs try to tell us. These are all very much, this is all possibilities. Nothing's off the table. I'm going to end that here. Okay, that is all for the second part of TED 37, because, you know, we got 2 weeks here and we might as well split it up into different discussions. Thank you for joining me here. I've been Randy Troy, and I'll catch you next time.
I've been swimming deep, deep. Savage.